Last week, Free League Publishing announced that they're opening pre-orders for the next book in their Alien the role-playing game. It is available at alien-rpg.com. It is the Colonial Marines Operations Manual, and if you pre-order it right now, you'll get the PDF before everyone else does at mass retail once it hits retail, and you also get this really nice PDF art book of all the amazing art that's in this new book. So make sure to check it out at alien-rpg.com if you're interested in anything that we're talking about today. Today we've got the author of this Colonial Marines Operations Manual on, Andrew E.C. Gaska. You know him as the author for the core rulebook, the Chariot of the Gods cinematic scenario, and also Destroyer of Worlds, the cinematic scenario. One other thing I will remind folks that if you are tuning in and you like this kind of content and you like the Alien RPG, please hit that like button down below, and also hit that subscribe button. That helps us grow as a show, and we love having everyone part of our YouTube community. And also let us know if you're excited for this Operations Manual and if you've pre-ordered it already. So we'd love to hear from you. Now, without further ado, let me bring on my co-host for this event, and that would be the one and only Dave Seamark from the Effect Podcast. Dave, thanks for coming back on and kind of co-chairing this event with me.
Yeah, my pleasure, completely. Good evening, everybody from here in the UK. It's evening here. Good day over there in the US, and good whatever time of day it is to anybody else who's watching from somewhere else. Yeah, delighted to be on, Doug. It's always a great pleasure to come and chat with you and Drew, so thanks for the invite.
I'm going to tell folks that if you haven't checked out the Effect Podcast, go check them out. What website are they supposed to go to, Dave?
Yeah, so go to Effect Podcast, Effect with a K, effectpodcast.org for our magazine show, and effectap.org for our actual play channel, where we are currently playing our playtest of the original Destroyer of Worlds before it got slightly amended to the published version. So come along and have a listen to that unique scenario. Very good.
So let's bring on the man of the hour that we want to chat with all about this new book expansion for the Alien, the role-playing game. Andrew E.C. Gaska, you know him as the IP consultant for Alien. He created the continuity and the canon Bibles for the franchise. And he's been going right to town writing all these different modules and cinematic scenarios and books for Alien. Thanks for giving your time to come on, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. I always love talking to you.
It's
that was said with sarcasm.
That was said with sarcasm. Already off to a great start already, folks. Thank you so much. Drew, you know you're one of my best friends. I love having you on.
I'll look behind the curtain real quick. Could you send me a link so I can put this on my Facebook right now so I can have people watch this that know me?
I can. Yeah, sure. I can do that. Yeah. I'll just tell folks that if you know anybody else that would be interested in this podcast or this session, feel free to share that online. We'd love to have you do it. So Andrew, this was announced last week. You've been working on this for quite a while.
Yes.
This Colonial Marines Operations Manual.
Yeah. I mean, I guess almost a year ago is when we started working on it. I was finishing up Destroyer, and one of my co-writers on it, Paul. Dave, do you know Paul's last name or no? Because I keep forgetting it. I want to say it's Paul Elliott, but I think that's wrong. So I'm just going to say Paul.
I think it is Elliott, yeah.
Paul Elliott, yeah. Paul had started writing back in August the new rules for it. For Marine creation, and he had done some of the mission scenarios at that point. And we weren't able to work together on it because I was still working on Destroyer. And then I thought, okay, now we're going to bring this together, and I had to do a rewrite of Destroyer. Destroyer was originally very different than even the version that Dave is showing on the playtest now. That was changed because of COVID. But so I started working on. I still had to do so much more on Destroyer, and then I had to look at what Paul did and find a way to mesh it together. So there was some blending going on there at the end, there's a lot of good stuff in there. It's a lot of source book material, with new vehicles and weapons and stuff like that. And then there's new factions to deal with out on the frontier. There's a total of 7 missions, 6 little missions, and then the end game finale. So yeah, the book is going to be packed because once again I've overwritten like I always do.
It's so they've announced that it's over 200 pages. It's a hardback book. It has some incredible art. I'm just going to throw up some of the art while we're talking here. I'm very, very excited about how this is going to add to the game itself. I know a lot of folks are really they really wanted more material to kind of create a campaign type of play for this game, just because it's been so much has been kind of pushed towards the cinematic play. So it's kind of nice to have a book that kind of focuses on the the campaign aspect of this system.
I think I'd just like to say that everybody knows Martin Grip and his fabulous work. He's shown the artwork there. Just a shout out to Gustav Eklund and Jarek Kubicki, who've done a lot of the artwork there. They are equally talented and brilliant artists. Absolutely. And they've done a lot of work, not only on Alien, but on Coriolis and stuff before, certainly Gustav has. So I wanted to shout out for those guys.
Yeah, who's the newest artist?
Jarek.
Jarek, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because when Thomas said to me, it's like, so we're thinking about adding this new artist. He did this 1 or 2 pieces as a sample. It's like, what do you think? I was like, yes. I was like, yes, add this guy. And it's like when he first said to me, we have to add a new artist. Like I felt my heart seize because I was like, we need Martin Grip. We need the quality we've had. We have the quality we have. Okay. It's like they're all really great guys, so it's really wonderful work.
I will tell folks, if you have any questions for Drew, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll be glad to bring them in and let everyone kind of ask the questions that they have. Mark actually has a really great question, and since you brought it up, Drew, you're going to have to expand on this. Mark says, can we hear how Destroyer changed because of COVID? It sounds like a good story.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So when Destroyer was conceived, it was about, and this was back in August of last year, and I had completed it for January 1st of this, this year. So long before the COVID fiasco happened, Destroyer was about a viral outbreak on a colony, and nobody knew who was infected and who wasn't.
Oh no! So. What I hear is that maybe Drew is the person that we should blame for the situation that 2020 has become.
Well, it's funny that this stuff keeps happening because when Destroyer first, when Chariot first came out, people were like, "Oh, he's talking about vaccinations and how they're bad." And I'm like, "I am." I wasn't. So it's very interesting. I keep accidentally tapping into these things, but it was about March, I think. Yeah, it was March, and I got a call from Thomas. He's like, "We need to talk. This needs to be written." I'm like, "Why?" And then he's like, "We really shouldn't be dealing with this right now." And at first, I got on my sci-fi author high horse, and I was like, "Sci-fi should always challenge our thoughts about what's going on now." And I really think that we need to take a stand. And he's like, I agree with you completely about all that stuff, except you don't. And this is a quote he said, and this put me back in my place and made me realize how right he was. You don't write a story about a man escaping a burning building the day after 9/11. You can do it later, but not the day after.
Sure. And
he humbled me completely with that, and I was like, oh my God, he's right. And honestly, that original idea, that's going to be used at some point, with the stuff. But the version of Destroyer we have now, I think, is a lot better than what that was. So even though with this mad scramble, I got 2 months to rewrite this thing, I think it worked out really well in the end. So there's your look behind the curtain.
Very cool. Very cool. 42nd Street Matthew asks, can we hear a bit of preview on what the new factions will be in the Colonial Marines book?
Nope. No.
And that's our show, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Next.
And honestly, I mean, a big part of that answer really is nope, because it'd be giving away too much secrets. But
Okay.
the factions in play are the governments that you expect them to be, but there are factions within those governments that are up to different things, and then there is an unknown element. I guess you could say a terrorist element that is involved as well. And then there is an even more unknown element, which is hinted at in Destroyer. The entire campaign of the Frontier War, which is what's in this operations manual, all spirals out of what happened in Destroyer. Destroyer was the opening shot of this war. So, ooh.
Very good. See here, Brian asked, will Destroyer of Worlds be integrated in this campaign?
Yes, 100%.
Awesome.
100%. Yeah, it's like I said, everything starts with Destroyer. There's information, and I don't know spoilers, obviously, but there's information if your players want to go back to Ariakas, which is the planet in Destroyer. This is what's going on there. So that information's in there too. What I'm trying to do with the whole series is build a living, breathing universe that ages along with the releases. So one single year's release, like the first year everything was 2183. Okay, this year was supposed to be the Destroyer and the operations manual, but the operations manual was obviously pushed back a little bit. But those two are still 2184, and then the next two books will be 2185. And as each year we publish, we're gonna move ahead in the timeline, and there's ramifications for everything. So even though your players may not play Destroyer, you're playing the campaign. You're going to find out, oh yeah, this happened there. So it really happened. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is what happened on that planet. It's messed up. You may have played that or not as different characters. You may, if your character survived, you may be using that character as your ongoing player, and then you're the shell-shocked guy that knows about what happened there. So it's not isolated events. It's all building a grander story.
Very cool. Let's see here. Brian also asks, so will the 3 WC Royal Commandos UPP receive weapon options?
The UPP, yes. With the 3 World Empire, there's only 1 or 2 new items for them in it because they are not a major player in this particular campaign. But their standard weapons are defined. There's more information about them in there, but they are definitely not the focus of this book. It's definitely the UA and the UPP. But there's lots of new stuff for the UPP in there. Some of the stuff was put in Destroyer, but there's a bunch of other vehicles that weren't even in Destroyer that are brand new that you're gonna get to have. So,
and are these vehicles that are from books and comics elsewhere in the canon, Drew, or are these sort of brand new ideas that have been put together for this book?
Well, for the UPP, there wasn't anything really.
Yeah.
I remember when I the William Gibson Alien 3 comic, they show a dropship that they have, and it's literally they just use the Colonial Marines dropship for that. So that dropship is there, and I wrote a backstory about it that is similar to the way the Russian space shuttle suddenly looked almost like our space shuttle.
funny that.
Yeah, exactly. So I have that story about that dropship in there to explain that artist doing that in the comic.
Yeah.
But their version, the wings don't unfold out. It doesn't have the advanced mechanics. It's like a bare bones version. But there's a whole bunch of new vehicles for them that are. I looked at things like, okay, so let's look at a fighter craft, the fighter craft lineage from Russia and China and everything. Let's extrapolate what it would be in the future. Okay, things like that. Now for the Marine side though, there are things that have been pulled from other sources, and it's something that I'm really proud of. Is my insanity in deciding that I was going to make the Kenner vehicles be canon. So I know it sounds ridiculous because you look at something like what. But the approach we took for it was, like if you look at the Kenner X-Wing from 1979, okay, for Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
It's not, you look at it and you say X-Wing, but the scale is completely wrong for the actual ship in real life, okay? And when I say real life, you know what I mean. The cockpit is way too big, the thing is stubby, because made small and into a toy. So we started with the Kenner toys, and we said, okay, if this is a toyetic version of a real vehicle, what would that real vehicle be? And we pulled it backwards to make it realistic, and those vehicles are now in there. So you're going to get your XT-37 Stinger. You're going to get your evac fighter, and you even get the hover tread. So, and we made that make sense because it's a disaster. It's a failed experiment. So, the hover tread. It's a tank, but it floats. Okay, so it has tank treads, but it floats. Okay, so we did that make sense. We wanted to do it all vehicle, and it did none of it. So yeah, and there's stuff from the comics in there. I think everybody likes the Berserker armor from Aliens Tribes, and that may or may not be in there. Yes, it's in there.
Nice.
Heard it here first, guys. Heard it here first.
So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in there that comes from other sources, and some new things, like I said. So yeah, so it's like the reason why we had to have a UPP fighter is because we had the evac fighter. So it's like, okay, if we're not going to, have you, we're flying around and the UPP is using their drop ships. No, because they destroyed easily by a fighter. So it's got a nice balance of stuff for the two armies. So.
Nice. Cool.
Liam asks, love your work, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Will the missions be on roll 20? Thanks. That's more of a question for Thomas. I think I'll probably ask that during the Free League update later this month. So stay tuned for that. I know that's kind of an area that they're trying to push towards.
Right. I could only assume so. Yeah.
Yeah. It might not be available right on release, but I know that they're pushing towards that. Especially now with everything that's going on here in the world. Well, this is a good question from Brian. Let me see let's see here. He says, or Dan says, are there any new critters in the book for our Xeno Stompers to smash?
No, we decided we were going to take the aliens out. We're not going to have anything but people in it from now on.
Just people. Just
yes, there's new critters.
We've got enough aliens. Don't need any more.
We've already covered those yet. We don't need them.
Someone said alien. I thought they said illegal alien. No. So
it wouldn't be a good chat without a quote from Aliens, though, would it? So
I have a quote in there. No. Yeah. There's new creatures. In fact, without giving anything away, there's something that's hinted at in the first two films. In fact, all the films in the first three films, that has never seen a fulfillment that gets a fulfillment in this campaign book. I cannot give you any more than that. That's the ultimate piece. But people will be like, "Oh, that makes perfect sense. Why didn't they do that?" So, yeah. There's new creatures, and there's stuff that ties into the films that wasn't shown.
Right. Cool.
Interesting. Mark says, can you talk about the process when you want to expand the canon with a new vehicle? Does someone at Disney have to approve it? And if so, how long does that take? That's a great question, Mark. Thank you.
So what happens is that I write the book. Obviously I talk to Thomas. I'm like, hey, I want to do this, blah, 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 blah. We go back and forth and stuff. I write the book, and then when it's all written, it goes to Disney. And Disney looks at it all, but Disney won't look at it all unless there is a reference sheet with it. So basically, I have to prepare a document after every book that says, I took this from here. It originally appeared in this source, and I extrapolated it to be this now. This was originally this, and if you're building things off of things that already exist, it's much easier to get it approved. Because they're like, you're not changing things, are you? These things exist already, and you've just brought them into the new fold. And they're happier with that stuff. It's easy. It's something I learned when I was doing the franchise consultation. That if you're going to shake it all up, who are you to shake it up? We need Ridley Scott to shake it up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not the role playing to shake it up. So there's areas that it's really easy to get things pass by, because once I can back it up with, well, this was in this, and this was mentioned here, and this was there. And in fact, with the XT-37 Stinger vehicle from Kenner, they kind of drew it in the Colonial Marines 12-issue series anyway. So it was easy enough to pass that. It's like it's in the comic and it was a toy. Oh, okay, good. So little things like that. What's also really something that I love to tap is the unproduced material, because and I was inspired to do that by the West End Games Star Wars game back in the 80s.
Yep.
I always wind up talking about this because I love it so much. But it's like they would have different vehicles, and you'd look at the art, and it's like that was the unused version of the speeder bike, and then that stuff winds up being in Rebels. It's like Ezra bike,
And you're seeing that stuff now in the Mandalorian. They're going back and pulling in all sorts of McQuarrie art that was concept art and putting that into the show.
So
no spoilers. I haven't watched it yet. No spoilers.
Oh no, don't worry about it.
So we got to remove Dave from this pod. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dave. If you haven't watched that, then
I said yet.
What do you call it? So like that's the easiest stuff. I know what to work around, and everything that I have. This is what it comes down to, okay? And it's a mistake that so many people make when they work on a franchise, okay? And I think a lot of this time is because the person who works on a franchise doesn't necessarily love the franchise. It's a job, okay? And you may get a really talented author or designer who's working on this, but I casually like Alien, okay? But so I'm going to put these things in that I think, but I have this idea for this, okay? So for me, I save that stuff for my creator-owned stuff that's going to come out, and what I try to do is I look at the core of, okay, let's look at what we have here, and there's stuff that hasn't been done, which is clearly implied here, and then there's things like, oh, but what if it was this? So which is out of it, and then so it's all true to Alien when you look at it that way. So I honestly, I haven't had anything rejected yet that I've put in, fingers crossed. But in each of the books, there were some things that are like, wait a minute, what's the deal with this? And the minute I gave them a reference information on it, they're like, oh, okay. So it just don't reinvent the wheels when it comes down to. If Pokemon shows up, it's going to get rejected.
So here's I have a question for you, Drew, and this was just announced I think just a few Monday that Marvel is of course Marvel got the Alien comic from Dark Horse back earlier this year, and they're going to be issuing Alien #1 in March. Have you been consulted at all on that on where they're going with the new comic? I
can either confirm or deny these allegations.
All right. I'm not gonna. I didn't know if you could say it or not. I was just kind of curious as an Alien fan.
I'll just tell you right now, if I did, I couldn't say it, and if I didn't, I would still not be able to say it. So
neither confirm nor deny. Yeah.
This is not one of those cases where someone's answered the question without answering the question. It literally I have not answered the question.
I was excited to see that we were getting new Alien. A new Alien comic on the way.
Yeah, no, looks good.
Yeah. Rick Osha says, hope these lookdowns end soon so I can see you at a con.
Lockdowns, right? That's what he meant?
No, it says lookdowns.
I think he means lockdowns.
No, I think because you have your camera down. I think that's what it is.
You're going to set a trend. I'm going to start doing that.
I think we all have to start doing that.
Sadly, it shows the bald patch at the back of my head if I do that. So
yeah, I've noticed it. I'm not going to give you guys the satisfaction, but yeah, I've noticed it's done that a few times with myself. So I've got my head movements down pat to try not to show it too much. But if I go too far down, that's it.
Judd asks, is the political situation drawn from the Alien 3 audio drama by William Gibson?
It's based on the script from William Gibson. So
nice.
Yeah. And a lot of the politics of that are exactly what's going on in the game. I based it all on that. So.
Nice. 42nd Street Matthew asks, will there ever be a source book or further details about the engineer's space jockey, or is that all in Ridley's hands?
So they can be the engineers and the space jockeys have influence in things that are going on. Okay, you will see things that have to do with them, but the ultimate, there'll never be a source book or anything like that, because that literally is Ridley Scott stuff, and that's one of those things where you got to be careful where you tread. Sure. Because we're dealing with creating canon stuff here, and so if we work the right way, what we do won't be contradicted by a major film later on. If we decide to say, like, for instance, if we came out and said the space jockey and the engineers are not the same, they're two different races, I don't know that, and that could be completely wrong. So we can have a situation where you're really confused about what's going on, but we can't answer those questions. And some of that is what makes the horror of Alien. I mean, when we saw that space jockey there and knew nothing about it, that was more terrifying and more awe-inspiring than anything else. So especially in a game like, in a universe like Alien, nobody has all the answers. You know, how did the egg get on the ship in Alien 3? Well, we don't know, but really, for the plot of Alien 3, you don't need to know. You just need to know what happened. And, you know, so what happened on that ship in between? I know the Colonial Marines video game, which is no longer canon, tried to answer that, and it kind of answered it poorly. There's been other suggestions that it came from the Queen, who was, you know, on the ship briefly. There's all these different. Someone thinks Bishop brought him there, which I don't think at all. But I don't think. I think it's one of those things where if you make your players think, "Oh, I've got this solved," but then you throw them a bone, which makes them go, well, "Wait a minute." That's part of the universe. It's like the X-Files. Also, the more things were explained in the X-Files, the less interesting the X-Files.
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely. Yeah.
Brian asks, what is the estimated release date for the pre-order PDF? I know I've gotten an answer from Thomas previously in the Alien Facebook group. So if you're not a member of the Alien RPG Facebook group, you should definitely go check that out, because it's a great community, and there's a lot of folks that really love just kind of homebrewing stuff, just asking for advice and all this and that. Thomas has said that the estimated release date they're aiming for is around the end of January. The book is supposed to release, I think, in March. I don't know if they have a specific time in March, but that would probably be if it is all ready to go for the printers, and it's going to be printed by March. I would think that the PDF the end of January sounds like a pretty doable time frame. So I know that's what they're aiming for. Whether or not they get to it, we'll see.
Yeah, and you got to also understand, and that's something that people don't realize. It's like, if this was a creator-owned project, it'd be a lot different. But on each step of the phase, it has to get approval from Disney. So I wrote everything, that gets approval. Then they lay out the whole book, and it has to get approved again. So it's all that stuff. Usually, you're going to see the PDF probably a couple of months before the release of the final book, because it's once you get that final approval, then now we can go to print, and now we can also release the PDF. So.
Right.
Cool. The question I was going to ask, the rules are looking at expanding the player character generation. Is there anything you can tell us about that, Drew? Are there going to be things like life paths and that kind of thing in there?
Like Paul created all that stuff, and what it's basically. You start with the Marine that you have from the core book, okay? Yep. But then there are there's fields of specialties that you can go into that broaden this, so it's not everybody's the same template of a Marine, okay? So it's different schools that give you different skills, different years you spent in the service. There's for things that could have happened to you on this year, which would cause you to gain or minus something. So it fleshes out what it means to be a Marine. So instead of just being all Marines are this, now you have options. So, but it just does that for the Marines. Originally, I had wanted to do something like have a journalist in there as well and things like that. But we realized once again it was becoming too bloated. This needed to specifically be about the Colonial Marines, and we can do other stuff like that moving forward.
And there's nothing to stop a player generating a character with a different archetype and playing them as a journalist in a Marine campaign.
Yeah.
So obviously it's all compatible. Yeah. Cool. Sounds good.
Nick asks, will there be an expansion on the force structure of the USCMC in the UPP? Will the book provide insights into special operations elements of these armies?
All that is in the Colonial Marine book for sure.
All that is in there.
All that is happening. Yeah. The special organizations that were mentioned, like the Space Operating Forces for the UPP. There's more detailed information about them in there. The same thing with the Ministry of Security, Space Security, MSS, and various other factions within the factions. So yeah, so that stuff is hold on. And there's a whole chapter on the structure of the Colonial Marine Corps. So.
Yeah, there's another question I was going to ask, which
Go ahead.
I think one of the guys in the chat here is also mentioning something similar. Will there be other rules in this for playing an android soldier? And then one of the questions from Rick is about Hammer's backstory in Destroyer of Worlds. Is he's a grown soldier? Are there rules for that in the new expansion?
Yes, there are.
Cool.
What Hammer was first introduced in the novelizations of the Earth War comics. It wasn't mentioned. There's a character, General Spears, that's in those comics that wasn't mentioned any of this about him, but when Perry expanded it for the novel, it was explained that they were artificial womb soldiers, and I always thought that concept was really cool. So yeah, that's still built in there. You can play someone like Hammer. I'm sorry, what was the other part again of the question? It was
combat androids.
Oh, okay. So here's the thing: combat androids are and you'll see this in the history. They're illegal. Okay.
Oh.
The UPP use them, don't they? So
yes, the UPP has started to use them again, which is a big problem. Okay, and because of that, the UA, and you can see some of this in Destroyer as well. But because of that, so the UA is starting to rethink, oh, maybe we should use them anyway, even though they're illegal. So, yeah, that stuff is not that stuff is all hinted at, but going further into stuff like that will be for an Android supplement later.
Right.
Yeah, the UPP basically found a hidden storage facility that had David Sevens just in there, and they reprogrammed them all as combat androids, and some of those are Destroyer. So yeah, so they've opened a can of worms there. So.
Very cool. Sandro asks, as space is hell in Aliens and Marines will likely suffer PTSD, will there be an alternative expanded versions of the stress tables for long play? That's a great question.
It is a great question, and I actually don't know the answer to that. Because I don't write the rules, so I write the lore, the adventures. I'm writing the stats for the creatures now, and their special attacks. Because and which is very interesting because Dave wrote the original Aliens in the core book for that stuff. And every time I do a creature, I'm like, oh man, I've got to top what it does on that thing. How am I going to top what Dave wrote? Like, it's got to be something different. Like there's some crazy attacks that are in Destroyer of Worlds, which I don't want to spoil, that were clearly came from the fact that, all right, Dave, hold my beer.
I never said yes to holding your beer, though, did I?
No, you didn't. But yeah, there's one attack that I'm really proud of that play. I really don't want to say what it is, but there's one creature that there's one attack in Destroyer that people are constantly saying to me, "Oh my God, they held my character down and did this to it," and it worked out really well. So that's the key to making each of these creatures unique, because in some cases you'll see an alien that may look the same as another alien, but this alien is slightly different and has different attacks. So even if you've been playing a while, okay, I know he's either going to head bite me or do this or that. Oh my God, what did he just do? I never saw that before. That's the only way to keep it, interesting, I think. So
yeah.
Very nice. Judd also asks, any sign of some aliens who might hunt other species, a space predator of some kind? I love how we kind of tiptoed around the question a little bit, Judd. Thank you so much for. Is it that
tiptoeing makes me wonder if Judd was it right?
Judd, yes.
Yeah, if Judd already knows the answer to this question.
I think we should give a prize for somebody who asks the question without using the word predator at all.
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah. Well, Lilith asks, will there be options for base building? I think it would be fun to get attached to a facility with your Marines and have to defend it against hostile entities. That's a big aspect of a lot of Free League Near Zero games is the whole like fortress, stronghold, base arc kind of mechanic. And I don't, we don't really see that with this game.
I think your question, the questions your listeners, viewers, whatever they are, I think the questions your viewers are asking may be building the second Colonial Marine book.
Oh,
there's so much that's in this first book, and there's a couple of things you guys have mentioned that are not, and they make perfect sense. But our whole goal here is to touch on each of the three types of play. There's the Marines, which is warfare. There is the space truckers, which is just an honest man making an honest living in the galaxy, which at least Douglas will know what I'm talking about with that. And then there's the sense of wonder, which is the explorers. So with the core book and Chariot was pretty much your first touch at space truckers. Okay, Destroyer and the Colonial Marines source book, campaign book are your first look at Colonial Marines. And then there's going to be 2 Explorer books. And then we're going to circle back around and start giving you more on those. So somewhere in there's a space trucker campaign coming out that will take you much further than all the space trucker stuff you got in the core book. So, we're showing the biggest problem that people see for Alien, which is proving not to be a problem, and I'm glad for that, is they see it as, this is just a one-note game. I'm going to play this and be bored with it because I know the Alien and blah, 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 blah. And these special attacks that Dave created, and then making it later on that not all these have the same special attacks and things like that are putting people on their toes. But by showing them, hey, you guys can do all these things you've seen, all these things, and all these things that you didn't even think about, which are clearly part of the franchise already. So we're broadening your horizons before we detail all those horizons. If that makes sense.
Excellent.
Long answer, like usual.
No, it's good. It's good. Mark asked a good question. Does the book include new rules for ship-to-ship combat?
Again, I don't know. I know I put a whole bunch of new ships in there, so I don't know. Like when I wrote the ships for the core book, I didn't know the way the ship rules were going to work it or anything. I just created them and I gave information about relative strength and speed to this other ship and blah, 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 blah. And they worked all that out. So I don't know if there's new combat rules in there. I cannot answer that question. You should ask Thomas that.
Yeah, I didn't see it in the announcement. I just saw vehicle and weapons, vehicle and weapons section. I did not see anything on space to ship-to-ship combat. Waveman Mav says, was there a release date mentioned? I know they're aiming for March of next year of 2021. So I don't think they've put an exact date, just that time frame. Of course, things can change, of course, with printers and all that. So I think the aim is for March.
For safe, I've just been telling everybody spring. So
spring, yeah. So Joshua asks, so just popping in here now, is the Marine book going to fix the Damage versus Xenos issue from the core game? Because core makes them way too tanky to run an Aliens movie style game.
No. I mean, the game is designed so that the alien is super deadly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's and this is something I had to, when I wrote Destroyer the second time, the aliens that were in it, I had 4 times the amount of aliens in locations. It'd be like you walk into this room and there's 8 aliens, and Thomas was like, no, there's 1 alien, and I'm like, but why in aliens? And he's like, look at the statistics. I was like, never mind, because you'll never make it out of there. So I literally, I think at one point I had in one location on one map there were 125 aliens. And in the end, there's 20-something aliens, and it's as brutal as I had thought it would be with 125. So I don't know if they're going to change, not change, but do some kind of expansion, which is more of a wargaming look at it. But I believe that's not being happened. There are new alien, but not aliens. But not necessarily the alien. But there are more alien adversaries in the new books that have a variety of different stat ranges that make sense in this universe. So you encounter the alien, you're still screwed. But if you encounter this alien, maybe not so much, and maybe you could do what you're talking about. So it's just that at the core of the game, it's not aliens, it's alien.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's a difference as well between recreating the feel of Aliens, which is very much an action movie, lots of guns firing, and what I think is good in the game, which is making the players think a bit tactically. Even if you are a bunch of Marines, if you think tactically, you can take an alien or two down pretty easily. But if they get the jump on you, then you're in trouble.
Right.
So I think that's a really good strength of the game.
Agreed.
Mark asks, is it harder to write an adventure that conveys a sense of wonder / exploration?
No, I don't think so. I think that when we say wonder, looking at the space jockey in the first movie, that's the sense of wonder. Finding in Prometheus, finding the cave with the head and oh my God, there's atmosphere in here and da da da. All those things are wonder. The city in Covenant is wonder. It's like, what is this? Why does this exist here? It's the thing that makes you want to look in the egg. That's the thing that makes you put your head, what is this? So it's not a Star Trek, it's an evil Star Trek. If that makes sense. No good will come of this. Wonder all you want, but no good will come of this. There will be blood. So yeah, I don't think it's difficult at all. No.
Yes. Winks asks, is the personal agenda / story system getting any changes or improvements in the Colonial Marines manual? Operations manual? It was definitely a favorite aspect in Chariot of the Gods for my group. This is probably is that something you can answer, or
no? Is
that a question we might be able to ask Thomas at the
that's another Thomas question. Yep.
Yeah. Totally.
Very
good. So, Dave, do you have any other questions for Drew that you had in mind? If anybody else has any other questions, we're running up to about 42 minutes, so we probably only keep a few more minutes longer. But if anybody else has any other questions as you're watching, let us know, and we'll try to answer them before we sign off.
So I think I've got sort of a couple, but the main one. There are, I think, 6 Marine missions at the end of in this book, and an end game. Is there anything you can tell us about any of those? About sort of the style of writing? Are these kind of like adventure sites as you'd get in Forbidden Lands, or are they kind of actually sort of mini scenarios, or is it? What can you tell us about those?
It's. I guess you could think of them as 1-act scenarios, but it's not. It's. You have a map, you have a location, you're going here to do this. But then there's things that will happen that there's a list of things that can happen that totally change what happens in there. And there are events, just like in the cinematic scenarios, you can either play all the events, you can play just 1 or 2 of the events, or you can play none of them and do your own thing. Yeah. There's a lot of flexibility in it. As a single act, in most of the things that I write seem to take players like 4 hours at least to complete. There's a lot of stuff in that. You'll have a lot of fun. One of the locations that I created for that has so much spin-off material. I realized that I probably could have done a source book all on that one planet.
Okay.
But we're not doing that. So there's so many options there for the players for the GM to be like, oh, we need to go back to that world and do this instead, or do that. Mm-hmm. Or I'm just going to create a whole campaign that has nothing to do with Colonial Marines on that world. Yeah. And it's a world that's been mentioned in the movies, but never seen. And the only thing I'll say is, no, it's not Earth. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And presumably these are basically give a range of scenarios, games that people can play into their campaign however they see fit.
Yes,
so they can just play it as they like.
Even with the missions, excuse me, you don't have to play them in a particular order.
No,
there are clues in them that might lead you to the location of the next one or a different one. but you could wind up zigzagging around them before you get to endgame, or you could wind up going a straight line, or you could just have the GM create their own thing that leads to endgame if they want, or just use it all as source material. It's made very flexible, very flexible.
Yeah, cool, nice.
Very awesome. Judd asks, is there any discussion of the Marines pivoting as aliens become common knowledge and creating a special ops unit to combat them specifically?
So when I wrote this, there's something on the map that's not supposed to be there. Okay.
Okay.
There's a planet on the map that, not the name of the planet, but it wound up in the wrong territory. Okay. And I wrote a little thing explaining why this would be there, because I realized it really bothered me that was there. Okay. I don't want to go into too much detail about this, but so I started writing, well, this is why that's there. Of course it makes sense to be in that location, just covering my butt on something that nobody's even noticed. And I started describing what's on that planet, and I started describing the base on that planet, and then I just started describing what else is on that planet and why that has to stay there and all this stuff. And I'd written thousands of words and realized none of this has anything to do with the campaign. And so I told Thomas about it, and I was like, I'm thinking maybe this needs to be pulled as its own Marine adventure.
Oh.
Okay. And it has something to do with what was just said with this question. That's what prompted all this.
Right.
Cool.
I thought we would do that and have it come out with the Marine book, but it doesn't fit the pattern of what we're doing. It's
Sure.
cinematic campaign. Okay. So so when we get back to Marines, that will sort of be a byproduct of what happens moving forward. So long story, yes. Short story, no, but.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool.
Waveman Mav says, my group prefers campaign play to cinematic play. Since the game is so deadly, will campaign play be feasible for the Marine characters? We want to live!
Well, this is something that I've been thinking about lately, and I think that your players are going to have a different way of handling things. I think there's more likely to be people cowering and hanging back on things, which is interesting because it's going to create a lot more stress at the table. You're going to be more invested in the characters. And I think it's going to be interesting how people deal with it. But in regards to the deadliness, things are still really deadly. Don't think, because it's a campaign, the aliens are less deadly now. They're not. It's just you are dealing with a bunch of stuff in between as well. Okay, because the alien should not be. And then you turn the corner and there's an alien. It should never. The alien should never be that. It should be the prize that now we have to face this and we're screwed for facing this. But also this whole thing with the advancement and the career stuff and everything like that just being added in there allows your players' characters to become better, and the story points are being applied to characters that are building in the campaign. So you will increase in ability and your survivability will be better. But just like Ripley, you're probably going to hit a wall eventually. I mean, she grew so much, but it was inevitable. And when that happens, what you're playing is you're playing a unit that is sent on these missions to do these things. Okay. So if your player dies in the next mission, you will play the Marine that replaces that player if you want. Because the Marine unit has to have 12 guys in it. So if somebody dies, they don't just have a Marine unit with 11 guys. No, they send a replacement in. So you may wind up playing replacements. But if you're smart about the way it's set up so that if you're smart, you'll survive. I think a lot of people in the cinematic scenarios do crazy things because they know they're dying anyway. And that crazy things are some really interesting moments in the game. When I was playing, the one time I played with Dave on, was that for UK Game Expo?
Yeah, it was District 11. Yeah.
I did some crazy things in there just because, let's see what happens. And it wound up being really cool. I didn't die because of the crazy thing I did. I died because of the stupid thing I did. So no, I think literally, again, to bring back the joke about hold my beer, I literally have been watching people all along saying, I don't know how this would work for campaign play, and literally I thought hold my beer when we did this. So I think they'll be pleased.
Mark has a really nice question here, or a nice comment here. It says, Mark says, it's clear Free League really cares about the quality, the lore, playability, story, art. I GM a game for my wife and kids, and I can't tell you how much fun we have playing this game. Thank you. I really think that Drew, you're doing a great job, and all the team at Free League is doing an incredible job with this line. I think it's not only appealing to folks that love Alien, but also just role players in general as well.
Stuff like that makes it that much better. All the positive reaction, all the fans that contact me privately to tell me about what crazy thing happened. I'm not annoyed by any of that stuff. I know there are creators who are like, oh, they won't leave me alone. It's like, no, I go on the groups and talk, and so does Dave, and we make fun of each other a lot on the groups. But
any reason I talk to you online, Dave.
But and I just hate this Douglas guy. But regardless, I've said this before. I don't know if I've said this on a show with you, Douglas, or not. But it's like, what makes this product what it is that everybody involved in it actually really cares about the property. Martin Grip is not phoning in his art. The graphic design area is not just pulling a template from something. It's like clearly a lot of care and thought of this universe went into this whole project. And if I could have brought my A game and nobody else brought their A game, and it wouldn't have done well. So it's not just one of us; it's all of us. So, it's a great team.
APS, any plans to explore the cults that have sprung up at that worship the alien, like the Church of the Immaculate Conception?
So this time I will answer the question without answering the question.
All right.
I can either confirm or deny these allegations.
All right. Very good. Oscar asks, Oscar had an earlier question. I must have missed it earlier. Will there be any campaign one-shot except for where we play as the alien? Drew, can you make that happen?
I can answer that question because I've had this conversation with Thomas and others, and the answer is no.
Yes, and I can tell you why. No. Because I originally wanted to explore that because my original thought was, okay, you're playing this player, and in fact, the abominations came out of my idea for this. Okay, because I was like, you're playing this player, and your player dies really easily in this game. You're playing his character. His character dies really easily in this game. So when you die, what if you start playing that chest burster instead? What if you start hunting the player? So eventually it's like all the players are on one side of the table, but in the end, all the players that died are on the GM side of the table. I thought it'd be a really fun twist, right? And that's why the abomination came about when you're playing something that's becoming a creature. But even then, at some point, it's taken away. And the reason why that I'm aware of is that Steve Zerlin over at Fox, before Disney, the merger was complete, said if you get to play the alien, the mystique of the alien is taken away.
Sure. That makes sense.
It's no longer alien. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. It trivializes it. Something that I feel that a lot of the crossovers do is just makes it this thing instead of being what is that, and that's what you get from the first Alien movie. The what is that, what is it, why is it doing that, why is it standing that way, why does it look like it thinks it's being crucified, I don't understand why it has its head between its knees. Everything is like why, and that's what the alien should always be, this mysterious thing that you can't comprehend.
That didn't stop me doing a fan hack by Alien, where you can play aliens, which my players really enjoyed. But your point is a good one, well made, Drew. Though that's a fair point.
Yeah, it as far as brand, as far as being on brand, not allowing you to play the alien makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
From a fan standpoint, yeah, it would be cool and fun. Especially, I mean, I think it would be really great to have that one player on one side and everybody on the GM side of the table at the end, and that one guy who's left like, what am I going to do? You know, but to be on brand, I think this makes more sense.
Yeah. Sure. Rick Osha asks, will there be anything in the works about a more established colony like the mining operation in Outland?
I have something that I've already written a pitch for and has not been approved or disproved yet. So
okay, cool.
Hopefully, yes.
Very cool. All right, we're getting close to an hour. We've caught up on all the questions. Is there anything else you'd like to tell folks about this this Colonial Marines operations manual before they go pre-order it, or if they've already pre-ordered it and they're excited about it? Drew, is there anything else that you want to say to everyone that's tuning in and watching this?
Just that there's an expansive history section, which seems to never come up in any of the questions so far yet. And I think people are going to be really excited when they read it, because all the events that have been mentioned in books like the Colonial Marine Technical Manual are in there and fleshed out. Proper dates are given to things. And if the way I approached it was that you look at it like real history. Like I did a whole bunch of historical research before I looked at it. Now, the history I looked at is over, the past 200 years of our history, and I looked at things and you see certain things keep happening. Like when an empire falls, this is why, that type of thing. There's always a politician in something or a senator in something that does this, and this always happens. And I applied that to the future history. And so there's a lot of conflicts in there that you're going to be like, oh my God, a victory led to that. So it's a living, breathing history that pulls off of all the things we've seen before and ties it all together nice and neat. So I think people are going to really enjoy that. Other than that, I recommend that you still be prepared to die. But be a little more careful this time.
Cool.
Before we sign off, I just want to. There's another really nice compliment in here from Cameron Dooley. This is. I just want to say, great job with the Alien RPG in the groups. I GM for absolutely love it, and there's a couple in the groups I GM for who love that you have down with the lore and how you have honored the Alien franchise. So, Drew, I know that it's hard to when you're working on these books and you're writing and you're and just like all of us that are dealing with everything that's going on in the world and being stuck at home all the time and not knowing, how much of an impact your work has been doing. I like to pull in those comments to let you know that people are really loving what you're doing and that your work is well loved and well received. And I know as a creator, sometimes you kind of think, oh, how is this actually being perceived? And I just wanted to, the chat has been constant with comments like that.
I again, that makes it all worth it because I started off as a fan, and I've been a fan for a long time, and since I was 12. So I have loved this thing. And one of the things I decided I want to do when I did my career was I want to create things that have a lasting effect that people will be talking about, and game wise or story wise that they will enjoy and be talking about for a long time. And I want to give back to the things that did that for me. And so working on something like Planet of the Apes and Alien and stuff like that, I don't want to just go in there and say, oh, this is my Planet of the Apes. I'm going to go in there and say, let me revere what has come before and help bring it together in a unity that wasn't necessarily there because all these projects were done separately. So I really appreciate hearing stuff like that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to have you back on again. I know that Free League has a whole bunch of material planned, for many more releases to come here in the next months and years down the road. So the next time that they make another announcement, we'll have to have you on, or we'll just have to have you on just in general again.
Yeah, I love arguing with you. Dave is another story.
Arguing. Yeah, Dave.
I'm too busy holding your beer, Drew. That's what it is.
Dave, you're coming back on tomorrow at this time, 3 p.m. Eastern, and it's like 8 p.m. over there your time to do an actual play of Alien. That it's a scenario that you wrote yourself.
Yep, it's the next one. It's called Alien Index, and it's a bunch of 3 World Empire squaddies getting themselves into trouble.
Nice. Did you get the approval from Drew before?
No.
Before.
Can I come and
It's not official.
can I come and heckle the whole time?
Absolutely. You know what we did, Drew? We had Matthew was on and did a Vason actual play of A Wicked Secret, and the author Gabby was in the chat and kind of and was talking while that was going on. So yeah, you should tune in, and you can give your own commentary during the actual play.
See, not canon, not canon, not canon.
I wouldn't have wrote it this way.
Well, it's not official, so it's not canon necessarily.
I like to give Dave crap about canon. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I did want to use Hadley's Hope, which I think caused you trouble back in the day. So yeah, fair enough.
It all worked out.
Fair enough. It did. It all worked out really well. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, that's 8 o'clock tomorrow, BST. So come along, have a watch. We look forward to seeing some people get themselves killed. It's a cinematic, so people are going to die.
Well, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and we've got a great cast for that. So make sure to tune in. And if you haven't, like I said, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please hit that subscribe button. And if you hit that little bell notification, it will notify you every single time we go live or upload new content. And we really appreciate that. We really appreciate the YouTube community that we formed this year on this channel, and hopefully others will we're going to hit 3,600 subscribers by the end of the year, which will be awesome. So all right, that's going to do it for this session. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you to my co-host Dave, and of course the man of the hour, Andrew E.C. Gaska. We'll see you all next week, we'll see you tomorrow and also next week as well. So we got plenty more content headed your way, so stay tuned.